Imagine the scene. It is Wednesday night in the Windy City, Chicago, Illinois, a city that lives, breathes, and bleeds basketball culture. The air inside Wintrust Arena is supposed to be electric. The atmosphere is supposed to be thick with a heavy, almost unbearable anticipation. This is the grand return. This is the exact moment that every single television camera, every mainstream sports journalist, and every social media expert has been waiting for with feverish impatience. Angel Reese, the cultural icon, the force of nature, the player with a staggering 8.4 million followers on Instagram, is making her highly publicized, triumphant return to the very city that drafted her. She walks onto that hardwood floor expecting a hero's welcome. She walks out of that tunnel expecting a deafening roar that would shake the very foundation of the building. And to be fair, she got the video tribute playing on the massive jumbotron. She got the polite standing ovation from the loyal fans in attendance. But what she did not get, and this is where our story takes a sharp, brutal turn into reality, what she did not get was a full arena. What she did not get was a dominant, superstar performance. And what actually happened on Wednesday night in Chicago should not just be a footnote on the sports page. It should send an absolute, undeniable shockwave through the entire economic model of the WNBA. Welcome back, everyone. Take a deep breath, grab a seat, and get comfortable. Because today, we are not just breaking down some random preseason scrimmage. We are not just going to read you a box score like the mainstream media does. No. Today, we are going to surgically dissect the brutal, terrifying, and undeniable difference between social media popularity and actual physical market value in the real world. We are watching the devastating head-on collision between internet hype and the unforgiving reality of the box office. To truly understand the magnitude of this situation, we absolutely have to set the context, because the context makes this infinitely more damaging for the Angel Reese brand. You have to understand exactly what was at stake here. On April 6th, the women's basketball world was turned completely upside down. Angel Reese was traded from the Chicago Sky to the Atlanta Dream. And she was not just traded for a couple of bench players. Listen to the price tag. The Atlanta Dream gave up 2 first-round draft picks. Let me repeat that so it sinks in. 2 first-round draft picks. That is a king's ransom for a player who averaged 14.7 points and 12.6 rebounds per game last season. On paper, this is a colossal investment. This is a 2-time All-Star. This is a player who secured a massive, historic shoe deal with Reebok, alongside brand endorsements that would make 99% of professional athletes completely jealous. On paper, Angel Reese is supposed to be one of the biggest, most bankable names in the history of women's basketball. The script wrote itself. She is supposed to be a certified, undeniable box office draw. She is supposed to fill arenas to the absolute rafters, move the needle, and command the undivided attention of the entire sports world. And yet, Wednesday night happened. In Chicago, her former home. Her very first game back in the city where she set rookie rebounding records. The city where she became a pop culture phenomenon. This event was heavily marketed as a massive homecoming. The storyline of the #1 star getting traded away, only to return to her old stomping grounds wearing an Atlanta Dream jersey. It is a sports promoter's ultimate fantasy. I mean, we are talking about a game where tickets on the secondary market were plummeting. They were going for $7, $8. In some places, you could literally buy a ticket to this game for less than the price of a hot dog at the concession stand. But look at the footage. I want you to really look at the wide shots of the arena. The building was noticeably, painfully thin. It was not full. In fact, it was shockingly empty in massive sections of the lower bowl, especially in the second half, when the broadcast cameras panned across entire rows, entire blocks of vacant, lonely blue seats. Now I can already hear the excuses rolling in. It is just a preseason game. You cannot expect a sold-out Game 7 playoff atmosphere. Sure, we get that. But this was not just any random Tuesday night scrimmage in an empty gym. This was Angel Reese's highly anticipated return to Chicago. The hype machine promised us a spectacle. The media narrative guaranteed a blockbuster event. And the event simply did not deliver the crowd. Nobody on mainstream television wants to talk about what this actually means. They are terrified to have this honest conversation because it shatters a narrative they have been building for 2 years. So, I am going to connect the dots for everyone watching right now. For 24 entire months, the mainstream networks and the daytime talk shows have force-fed us a very specific, manufactured storyline. They looked us dead in the eye and told us that the WNBA was being carried by a two-headed monster. They artificially positioned Angel Reese as Caitlin Clark's ultimate, equal rival. Every broadcaster, every podcast, and every blue-check social media account pushed this idea with desperate insistence. Reese was Clark's equal in terms of cultural impact, commercial value, and box office draw. But Wednesday night in Chicago proved definitively, irrefutably, and mathematically that they were completely wrong. Let us look at the actual economics. Because numbers do not have feelings. Numbers do not care about viral TikTok dances. The WNBA currently has exactly one player who consistently fills NBA-sized arenas regardless of the opponent, regardless of the day of the week, and regardless of the city. And that player is Caitlin Clark. When the Indiana Fever play on the road, 17 of their 22 games have had to be relocated to massive arenas just to accommodate the unprecedented, historic ticket demand. When Caitlin Clark plays on television, the ratings absolutely explode by 50 to 100% compared to non-Clark games. When Caitlin Clark was unfortunately injured in 2025, the national viewership for the entire league dropped by a staggering 55% in just 2 weeks. Caitlin Clark is a one-woman economic engine. She is an industry. And Angel Reese? Angel Reese could not even fill Wintrust Arena for her highly anticipated homecoming game. Meanwhile, just 5 days earlier, Caitlin Clark drew 743,000 television viewers for a meaningless preseason game against the New York Liberty. That is the most watched preseason game in the history of the ION television network. These two data points tell you the unfiltered, uncomfortable truth that the media has been desperately trying to obscure. Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese are not equals. They are not equals on the basketball court. They are not equals at the box office. They are not equals in television ratings. They are not equals anywhere. Having millions of followers on Instagram does not buy admission tickets. Going viral on the internet does not put butts in seats. Caitlin Clark is a generational box office attraction. Angel Reese is an internet celebrity trying to prove that her online clout translates to the real physical world. Now, do not get me wrong here. On this channel, we evaluate basketball fairly and objectively. Angel Reese is a good basketball player. That is a fact. She is a dominant, relentless, exhausting rebounder. Her 12.6 rebounds per game last season were absolutely elite. She is intensely physical. She is highly competitive. She runs the floor harder than almost anyone. And she has legitimately improved her scoring output. She is a two-time All-Star for a very real reason. The Atlanta Dream acquired a genuine talent who is going to help them compete in the brutal Eastern Conference. But, and this is a multi-million-dollar but, being a good basketball player and being a franchise box office draw are two entirely different universes. And the narrative that Reese is a transcendent, needle-moving star just took a devastating hit. Because think about it logically. If Angel Reese cannot fill an arena in the city where she played for 2 years, playing against her former teammates, with a tribute video playing on the screen, when exactly is she going to fill an arena? What does the alignment of the stars have to look like for that to happen? If 8.4 million followers cannot pack a stadium for a homecoming, the leverage she thinks she has with brands and television networks completely evaporates into thin air. Stay with me, because the story gets worse. We have to talk about the on-court performance. The box score from Wednesday night turns this bad look into an absolute nightmare. Angel Reese finished her highly anticipated return game with 8 points. But here is the ultimate kicker. She shot 2 of 7 from the field. That is a microscopic 28.5% shooting percentage. And she did it in just 13 minutes of action against her former team, in a game that was supposed to be her massive opportunity to look the Chicago Sky front office in the eye and show them exactly what they lost. Yes, she had 7 rebounds, which is very solid for 13 minutes. Yes, she had 3 steals, which showcases her undeniable defensive hustle and energy. But the shooting, 2 for 7. 28% in the biggest spotlight she has had since the blockbuster trade. That is simply not the performance of a player who is ready to be the offensive centerpiece of a championship contending team. She looked rushed. She looked out of rhythm. She looked disconnected from the flow of the game. And this brings us back to a fascinating psychological element. Angel Reese feeds off energy. She is a creature of emotion. Her entire public persona is built around playing the villain, silencing the opposing crowd, pointing to her ring finger, and playing with intense, boiling theatricality. But what happens when the crowd is not there? What happens when the arena is dead? Playing in front of empty seats completely neutralizes her superpower. It strips away the adrenaline. And when the emotion is gone, the game becomes about pure, fundamental half-court execution. And right now, shooting 28% from the floor proves that when the spectacle is stripped away, the offensive fundamentals are still severely lacking. Here is the comparison that Reese's die-hard fans are going to absolutely hate to hear. But facts are facts. In Caitlin Clark's most recent preseason game, she dropped 21 points. She shot 4 of 6 from the field. That is 66.7% shooting. And she did it in just 16 minutes against a defense anchored by the co-defensive player of the year. 8 points on 28% shooting versus 21 points on 66% shooting. Those numbers do not even live in the same zip code. Yet somehow, in a move that defies all basketball logic, ESPN recently decided to rank Angel Reese ahead of Kelsey Mitchell on their top players list entering the season. Kelsey Mitchell, a player who averaged 20.2 points per game, shot the lights out of the gym, and made the All-WNBA first team. ESPN ranked them as if Angel Reese is the vastly superior basketball player, purely because she generates more clicks and has more followers. Wednesday night's performance heavily suggests that ESPN's rankings are based on social media clout, not actual undeniable basketball reality. Now, let me play devil's advocate. Let me give you the other side of the coin, because we always look at the full picture here. Atlanta actually won the game. They beat Chicago 87-78. The Dream looked really good as a collective unit. The chemistry between Angel Reese, Ryan Howard, and Alicia Gray showed flashes of something potentially terrifying for the rest of the league. Head coach Carl Smesko only played his starters for 13 minutes by design. He explicitly stated that this game was about freedom, instinct, and seeing what the starters could create together, without a rigid playbook. So the limited minutes were totally planned. The rough shooting could easily be chalked up to first-game jitters in a highly emotional environment against her former friends. And the attendance issue? You can absolutely argue that it is partly explained by the fact that this was a weeknight preseason game in Chicago, a city where the Sky are currently in a deep, painful rebuild mode. It is incredibly hard to sell tickets for a rebuilding team on a Tuesday or Wednesday night. That is legitimate context. But listen to me very carefully. Context does not change optics. And in a highly publicized league where the narrative is everything, the optics of Wednesday night were a disaster for the Angel Reese brand. The lasting image is that her big return to Chicago drew a ghost town of a crowd and resulted in a clunky 28% shooting performance. So, here is what actually matters going forward. Angel Reese is now in Atlanta. The Dream have made 3 straight playoff appearances without advancing past the first round. They traded 2 incredibly valuable first-round draft picks to acquire Reese, specifically to break through that ceiling. The core of Ryan Howard, Alicia Gray, Brianna Jones, Naz Hillman, and Jordan Canada has been together for multiple seasons. The continuity is there. The coaching is solid. The defensive structure is elite. And now, the supposed superstar power is there with Angel Reese. The pressure is now at an absolute boiling point. Reese absolutely has to shoot better than 28%. She has to prove that her elite rebounding and defensive energy actually translate into winning high-stakes basketball games. She needs to show the Atlanta Dream front office that her 8.4 million Instagram followers actually care about the sport of basketball, and not just fashion content and viral internet trends. Because in the unforgiving, cutthroat business of professional sports, the only followers that matter are the ones who buy tickets, purchase jerseys, and watch the games on television. And on Wednesday night, not enough of them showed up to support her. The real test is coming. The Dream opened the regular season on May 10th against the powerhouse Minnesota Lynx. That is the real test. Not a preseason scrimmage in Chicago against a rebuilding team. The regular season, against one of the best teams in the entire league, with the pressure turned all the way up, the lights shining bright, and zero excuses left in the bag. That is when we will finally find out if the Atlanta Dream made a brilliant championship-level chess move, or if they panicked and gave up their future for a player whose impact is significantly louder on a smartphone screen than it is on a basketball court. We will be watching every single second of it, and we will keep telling you the unapologetic truth, regardless of who it offends. If you appreciate honest, data-driven analysis that cuts straight through the mainstream media noise, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and drop your honest take in the comments below. Is Angel Reese the most overrated player in the game today? Or is this just a massive preseason overreaction? Did Atlanta make a historic mistake, giving up 2 first-round picks? Let me know down below. The regular season is almost here, and it is about to get incredibly real.